Welcome to the Busted Knees and Pretty Trees podcast. Thank you for listening in, and we hope everyone got some good, solid rest after listening to last week's chatter around our experiences and preferences regarding sleeping systems on trail. Yawn, you say? Yawn indeed. Get some quality rest. It's important.
Yes, it is.
We spend a lot of time in that stinking body bag or quilt. 10 to 14 hours a day if you're Patrick with a fully loaded battery pack. It's important. If you're not sure what to take on the trail to max those Z's, check that episode out. We had a jolly good time. And for more jolly good times, bustedpretty.com is the signpost where you'll find direction to our backlog of backpacking, conservation conversations, and 12-ounce drive-by science lessons. I am Travis White. This here is Bradley Greer.
Hello.
And the first recipient of the Go Ahead and Get You Some High Achiever of the Week award, the best there ever was at what he does.
Yeah.
Patrick Richardson.
Yeah, bro. Broke records, Matt. What I do at work is inventory. I run inventory for Fort Wayne Metals, and we just had our physical inventory last weekend, and we broke the record. This is my second time actually running it for the company. So I will go ahead and give myself a shout out. And after this episode, I will drink more bourbon.
Great job, Patrick.
Yes, thank
and
you.
As Patrick spoiler alerted, we have a guest with some real fish bona fides. He's a senior conservation scientist with the Nature Conservancy's Michigan chapter. His expertise focuses on aquatic ecology, freshwater conservation, fisheries, and the greater Great Lakes ecosystem. He leads the Conservancy's Great Lakes Sustainable Fisheries Program, and his latest project involves reviving river-spawning lake whitefish in Michigan rivers. Matt Herbert, everybody.
Yay!
Thanks for coming on.
Happy to. Very excited.
Was everything
yeah.
I said there correct? There was a lot on that list.
Yeah, there's one thing. I don't lead our Great Lakes Sustainable Fisheries Program. I lead it for Michigan. So I'm the Michigan lead. So we have a Scott Soa is our Midwest Division Great Lakes program director, and so he leads our coastal, our aquatic invasive species, and our fisheries. And then I'm the Michigan fisheries person. We've got a person in Wisconsin, another person in New York, and then I've got two aquatic invasive species colleagues in South Bend. Actually, they work like hand in hand with our fisheries team. We work really close together. So,
awesome.
Well, I never thought about it, but does Michigan touch the most Great Lakes out of any state? Superior, Michigan, Huron.
Yes. Yep.
Surrounded.
Yeah.
On all sides.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've been in all of those lakes at one point or another.
Well, Travis, I got to say, too, for all those titles, just getting one little thing messed up, you really knocked it out of the park, Travis J.
I was sweating that. Did you hear me take that deep breath?
I was wondering if you were going to actually go through the log or just pick out your favorites.
No, I mean, it's all, I don't want to leave anything out because you have a wide breadth of knowledge that we're going to pick here soon.
Damn right. Hey,
Right on time, baby.
There is the News Panther. So, Matt, as we explained earlier, Brad or Walt, whomever, is going to lay into some news from the backcountry. So go ahead and lay it on us, Brad.
You know what's funny? I do want to say, Chip, who listens to our episodes quite often, we work with Chip, he always wondered where Walt came from, and Walt is named after Walter Cronkite.
Yeah,
the newsman.
newsman.
He brings the news.
The trusted newsman, right? Or what was his... Oh, shit.
Oh.
Yeah, drive-by. That was drive-by. See, Matt? We just drive-by science this all day long. More history. Yep.
So we're going to stick in the water, but this is in the Pacific Ocean. And Patty, this may shake up your favorite animal list because it does involve orcas.
Well, at least it doesn't involve elephants.
Were orcas Are orcas at the top of your list? Pretty close to the top?
I believe they're number one after figuring out that they wear hats and clean themselves. That pretty much launched them straight to number one.
Not just hats, fish hats, right?
Fish hats, yeah.
Yeah. So a new study published, that this article comes from the Seattle Times, but it's also has been reported in a bunch of places. A new study published in the journal Scientific Reports lays out a case of an orca pod off the coast of British Columbia teaming up with white-sided dolphins to hunt Chinook salmon. So historically, scientists thought that the only interaction they had with dolphins, the orcas, was dolphins coming up and trying to they'll mob orcas and steal bits of fish and whatever's left over from what they're feeding on. Because Chinook salmon's too large for dolphins to catch on their own.
Okay.
But so this study, it involved a team of scientists that attached tags with suction cups to orcas, and each tag was equipped with a camera and an acoustic recorder.
Okay.
So this helped them capture underwater footage and vocalizations to pair with drone footage that they were also taking during the study.
I feel like this is going to just solidify my number one pick at orca.
So the combination of footage and the audio recordings just kind of provided a fuller picture. The lead author of the paper was Sarah Fortune. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's spelled like fortune. So they documented every instance when a dolphin was close to one of the tagged orcas and whether the orca was locating the fish and when dolphins were around the orcas while they were eating the fish. So it gets a little, it's a little muddy now, but it'll clear up here in a second.
Okay, good.
They identified 25 occasions when orcas followed dolphins. So normally both of them dive deep down, catch salmon, come to the surface to eat it. So 25 occasions where orcas followed dolphins, and the dolphins would dive down, the killer whales or orcas would follow them down, and the dolphins would use echolocation to hone in on the fish targets. The orcas would go in and get the fish. The orcas would tear it apart and eat it, and the dolphins would kind of come in and get the scraps.
Okay.
So the dolphins are the scouts and the killer whales are the killers.
They even use that term. Like the dolphins are kind of scouting out where the fish are, then the orcas go in for the kill.
Okay.
Yeah. They studied 8 occasions where orcas shared the salmon with other orcas. And then 4 of those occasions, dolphins were also eating some of the scraps. 8 and 4 occasions doesn't sound like a lot. So it's probably hard to catch when this phenomena is going on, like when orcas hunting, like a pod of orcas are hunting.
Wait, so this isn't like you said phenomena. So this is an anomaly? So far as we understand?
Well, it kind of is with this specific pod of orcas because there's another pod of orcas that is a transient pod. Like this one always kind of stays in British Columbia, off the coast of British Columbia. Then there's a transient pod that comes through and they only feed on marine mammals, seals, dolphins. And this specific pod that's based out of British Columbia, that's always there, they feed off salmon.
Really?
The dolphins differentiate between the two. The transient pod that will eat them, attack them and eat them. And then the pod that's stationary off the coast that they're like friends with.
Huh.
Well, this just boosted up my love for dolphins.
Yeah.
They're moving from 7 to way higher.
Like a couple
scavengers they are.
A couple days ago, I ran across this random YouTube video about consciousness in animals and stuff. And they were talking about the tests they would do to, I don't know what it proves or anything, but it's very remarkable how like a bird will see itself in a mirror and see that it has like a little spot of paint on it and then turn around and pick that piece of paint off. Like it's aware of its own reflection and that is it. And so I don't know. Anytime I hear about something like this, I'm like these animals are extremely smart.
Dude.
Sarah Fortune, who was the lead author of the study, she said quote, we hypothesize that it could be that they're eavesdropping on each other. If the dolphin is echolocating, then the killer whale could potentially hear that return echo and map out where that fish target is, and vice versa. So also when the orcas are echolocating, the dolphins know we need to go there because there's going to be like some fish scraps for us.
So they're interspecies conversating as well, which I don't know if that's a massive deal because I don't know enough, but that's they're using each other's language to figure shit out.
Is it like in a way that you and I know the call of a squirrel in distress? You know, I was like, oh, that squirrel's in distress, or then they hear that orca and they're like, oh, that orca's hunting, in that way. Or do you think it's an actual? They know the language?
Well, like what it reminded me of was how crows and ravens kind of are the scouts for bears.
Oh,
they make a call when there's a dead animal. The bears come in, tear up the animal, and then the crows get the scraps from that animal. So it's kind of a similar thing. It seems like a similar, in my mind, that was a similar thing that's going on where it's like the dolphins can't get the fish, so they're making these calls, echolocating the fish for the orcas to go in and get the fish so they can have a little piece of it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's teamwork.
It's pretty cool.
This is British Columbia, you said?
Yeah, off the coast of British Columbia.
Is this, out of curiosity, the same pod, or do they know that if this pod wears the salmon hats?
No, I think that was an Atlantic pod.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's the story. So this story was published in a journal. There are some people that are saying that they're kind of making some stretches and their assumptions of what's going on. But it seems pretty, I mean, it seems like it is something that's happening. I mean, there's definitely, if you Google, even if you just Google dolphins and orcas and then hit news, you'll see a bunch of stories about this. And there's videos showing the underwater footage and the drone footage. And there's like 5 or 6 dolphins out in front and then 5 or 6 orcas right behind them, just following them. So it's kind of cool to see. I can only imagine being out on a boat seeing that.
Oh, that'd be awesome. But why are there naysayers? Like, is this why are there naysayers?
I mean, I think like I'm sure, Matt, you've probably encountered this. There's always people questioning your research.
Touche.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the process.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, I guess, what the peer review process is supposed to be about.
Oh, I get it. Okay. So it's not necessarily that people are out there like, you're so stupid.
And it may even just be like, I don't think you have enough evidence to make these conclusions. Like you're kind of making a leap saying you think this is happening.
Right. Okay.
But it's pretty cool nonetheless. Either way, they've captured a lot of good data. And I mean, this was like 2020, 2021. So they've been going through this data for years, and this journal was just published. So it's awesome. Pretty cool.
I love it when we have stories or when I hear anything of that interspecies kind of working together. Yeah. It like kind of crosses that barrier for me of not just animals or anything living in the same like region or area, but then using each other's kind of information and knowledge and language and all that stuff. It just, for some reason, that just excites me. It kind of puts animals on like another thing for me. Yeah, or mammals. Yeah,
and they've been doing this the whole time. We just don't know.
Just now noticed it.
Yeah, we're just getting the technology and the care enough to want to study these.
Putting cameras on orcas via suction cup. That's pretty crazy.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Hey, there's the News Panther. I have one more question, and I'm just going to bring up the other orca story that we did. Is this anywhere close to the orcas that were clean? Because one of them was around the British Columbia area, right? Is this anywhere close to the orcas that were like holding the kelp and cleaning each other, scrubbing each other? I
didn't see that come up in any of the stories.
Okay,
but
I know it's a long stretch.
That was a Pacific pod of orcas. It was around the Seattle area.
I knew one of them
was. What were the ones that do like surgical
Matt, we've had a lot of orca stories on this podcast.
Yeah, we have.
I'm actually very surprised. It's majority orca stories.
That was
Matt, where do orca stand on your top list of animals?
Does it make the top 10?
Does it make the top 10?
No, not in my top 10.
I'm with Matt.
All right.
Sorry.
I recently did a top 10 list because I was challenged, and orcas, after the two other stories that we had, orcas just kept climbing that list like faster. Now it's orca, elephant, and then tiger.
Orca over elephant. Are you even a land dweller, bro? What is your problem?
I don't know. It's just they're wearing hats. They're cleaning each other. Now they're using dolphins to find food and then sharing their food with their compadres.
I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think where they were targeting livers of great whites, I think that was Australia area.
I forgot about that one.
They would they would kill a great white and just target their liver, eat their liver, and the rest of the great white would go just to the rest of the ocean, like all the other animals. They would just eat the liver. Cool. They rip their dorsal fin and like open it up to get the liver out.
They're so wasteful.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody benefits from that shark.
Like us just getting a tenderloin out of something. And
that's why I don't like the ocean, because they'll eat you up, everything, all of it.
I've never been eaten in the ocean. That can't happen. Well, Brad, great news story. Thank you very much, dude. We appreciate that. But we have a lot to get to with Matt. I have a list of like 10 or 11 questions. As all the listeners know, I just dive straight into these things. And then I'm sure you guys have done your own research and are extremely curious in your own rights. So what do you say we get back into this?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So, Matt, we kind of always start our guests off with our first question, which is just, you spend obviously a lot of your time outdoors and you've dedicated your life to conserving what you can in the outdoors. And so ultimately, like what leads you out there after, your job and your education and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think we kind of always have something that continuously takes you out there, whether or not it's conservation or backpacking or hiking or anything along those lines. So yeah, great question, Travis. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in, but I love that.
We needed clarification.
Yep.
Yeah, we hike a lot. We've kayaked a lot. I used to backpack. It's been a long time since I've backpacked. We're brand new empty nesters this year. So we're talking about maybe we'll do that again. Fishing. I like to fish a lot, but the same. I don't fish as much as I used to. So that's the answer for a lot of things. You kind of get busy. My wife and I tend to work too much sometimes and don't make time for that. But we do definitely get out and make sure we get out and hike a lot. But usually these days, more day hikes,
Oh yeah. Hey, congratulations. Is that a congratulations when you become an empty nester? Or is that a sad thing?
It's a little bittersweet.
It's all, yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of all around. So,
oh man, I have a 10-year-old and I'm kind of like, oh man, eight years.
It comes fast.
Boy. Man, I bet it does. Lord have mercy. So yeah, so you're into you do a lot of day hikes, or that's what you and your wife do when you're not out?
Yeah, we do. We've got some local places that we go to, all the time. We try to get up north, and we live right in the middle of central Michigan, and we've got some nice places around here, but we try to get up north and get to, do North Country Trail hikes and other cool loops and stuff as much as we can.
Yeah.
So it's not one of those things like my brother's a chef, and he if I was cooking at a job doing that over and over and over again, the last thing I feel like I'd want to do is come home and cook. but my brother loves it so damn much that he'll come and invite you over and he'll cook a big meal for you and everything. So as much time as you do spend in the backcountry, walking down the rivers or out on the lakes, you tend to still find enjoyment in your free time in the backcountry.
Oh, absolutely. And when I'm working, I'm busy, and I enjoy it. I love my job and what I do, but it's not quite the same as when we're just hanging out together and just messing around, because I'm not focused on something. I can just wander and let whatever is of interest at the time dominate our interests. So I definitely I don't get out as much. I could never get tired of getting out hiking.
Great. Yes.
Fishing maybe is a little more like that. Like I love to fish, but I'm not the greatest fisher. And and so the important thing for me when I go fishing is that I'm fishing in a place I really want to be. That way, if I don't have any luck, I'm still happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That way, at least the ambiance is there.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. So I kind of want to take it back to where you first kind of started. As Travis kind of alluded to in the intro, but then your just history of your education and everything starts not recently. You go back quite a few years.
I'm old.
So I wasn't going to say it. But what I am curious about, because of your pedigree, what kind of inspired you to first dedicate your whole career to conservation science? And then furthermore, how did that lead to the Great Lakes area? Because your kind of education, if I remember correctly, started in Iowa?
Yeah, I grew up in Iowa. That question would be a lot easier if I could just say like, I grew up in Traverse City, and my dad took me out on the lakes, and it's all like one thing, but it's not. I grew up in Southwest Iowa. I grew up on a small farm, kind of close to Missouri and kind of close to Nebraska. So where I grew up, it's kind of marginal farmland, pretty hilly, a lot of hogs and cattle. And we had a marginal farm. We had wood lots and a pond, and and I just spent a lot of time, along the creeks by our house and fishing. And we fished a lot. We camped quite a bit, and my dad had a good conservation ethic, and that's what really kind of drove it a lot. My maternal grandparents lived about 20 minutes west of Missoula, Montana. And a lot of our vacations growing up were out to Montana. And
good deal, Grandma.
I loved the landscapes out west and all the public lands. And I really thought that was really cool. I always actually, when I was young, I thought I would end up out west. But that's kind of what drove me. I had an uncle that worked for Iowa DNR, and from him I kind of learned like, you could actually do this, for a job, which was pretty important for me to make a connection there, to know that you could do that, So since elementary school, I wanted to go into this. So that's kind of how I got into this. As far as the Great Lakes, when I was a kid, I didn't visit the region. I didn't come here. Like I said, we would go out west as a kid, and I've tried to think about like what I thought of the Great Lakes as a kid, and I know, like, I remember like Paul Bunyan and the whole logging thing,
Yep.
And then, but also there's like, the whole like Cleveland and Detroit and Chicago and Motown and cars and all of that kind of stuff, and and so I don't really remember what I thought of it. The first time I came to the region was in high school. I was going to Chicago. I went to Chicago several times, and
absolutely,
Chicago is a Great Lakes city. It's I mean, to me, the identity of Chicago, Lake Michigan is a huge part of the identity of Chicago.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And so it's a really cool Great Lakes city. But that's probably what I thought of about the Great Lakes is that, and not Sleeping Bear Dunes and all these natural places.
When you were going to school, was it to the I know we took a lot of field trips to is it the Earth or the space, and there's a lot of museums there, like science and space museums and stuff.
The Natural History Museum. They have a huge aquarium.
Yeah.
Shed
That's
Aquarium.
a great area. Shed Aquarium. Yeah.
Awesome.
That is a great area.
And Museum of Science and Industry. Chicago has excellent museums. Yeah. That's
so
one of those trips to Chicago was our physics class took a trip to Chicago, and we went to the Field Museum, Natural History, the Planetarium, Shed Aquarium, Fermi Lab, the
Fermi Lab.
Museum of Science and Industry. So we did a bunch of stuff. That was such a cool trip.
Yeah. The Fermi Lab would be awesome to go to.
What's the Fermi Lab?
Where they discovered nuclear fusion, right?
Is that where they smash particles together?
Yeah.
Yep.
They got a particle accelerator.
That's where the A-bomb started, part of it.
What?
Yeah.
Fermi
He was
Lab?
the scientist, right?
Fermi's paradox. That's another podcast.
That's another one. We'll get Fermi on. So you grew up in Iowa. You had a connection to the national parks. You understood because of your father, conservation, kind of had an idea there. And I imagine you ended up in Michigan mainly because of career. That's where the Nature Conservancy kind of landed you?
Yeah, I bounced around a lot after college. I went from Iowa to Idaho. So I did end up going out west for a short time. And then I moved back from there to Illinois for a job. And then went to Texas, and then back to Illinois, and then to Michigan. So I bounced around a bunch.
You got your master's
in my 20s.
at Texas A&M, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
What was that in?
I was both my bachelor's and master's were in fisheries and wildlife. So I took a lot of more fisheries focused, but I had a lot of wildlife classes too, and just really focused on conservation.
Beautiful. So let's go up a little bit then. Just a little stat here that I looked up. The Great Lakes make up one of the largest freshwater systems on Earth. That seems like a very duh stat. What, in your mind?
I thought it was the largest. Is that not true?
You know what? This was Wikipedia. This was Wikipedia.
Ruin some of my Great Lakes
drive by science.
It is. It's like. In some ways it is. Like, it has a similar amount of total volume of water as Lake Baikal in Russia and Lake Tanganyika in Africa. But the surface size, I think it is the biggest system.
Boom. Well, that's not what makes this ecosystem so uniquely challenging. And, you've been up in the Great Lakes area for quite a few years as well. So what do you find like not only the most challenging, but the most rewarding in what you're doing up there?
Rewarding, there's a lot of things. I mean, challenging too. I mean, the lakes are so complex in so many different ways. The ecosystems of the Great Lakes are super complex. You've got, all of our different the diversity of coasts that we have in the Great Lakes, our nearshore waters, our coastal wetlands, and then of course the depths of the Great Lakes. There's so much variation in depths and reefs and all kinds of really interesting habitats in the Great Lakes. So the lakes themselves and all the ecosystems around it are super complex. The biota in them are super complex. The politics are very complex. I mean, I work in fisheries, and you've got every one of the lakes has multiple states or Ontario with jurisdiction on it. We've got 2 countries, of course. A lot of lakes have tribes have treaties on those lakes, so they have shared management authority for resources in fisheries. In treaty waters, they're part of the management system there. So there's, just politically, there's a lot of diversity. And then the issues are super diverse too. There's all kinds of, the I think I think back to what I learned about the Great Lakes when I was in college, and you learn about the history, and you learn a lot about the problems, and there are a lot of problems, and they're really complex. But I think what I didn't really learn is all the great things, all the beauty and all the cool things about the Great Lakes. But certainly the problems are complex, and there's a lot of conservation needs in the Great Lakes. A lot of entities that are working on those.
I guess one of the things I was the most impressed after looking you up and learning about you is very much the science, of course, but in terms of running this Great Lakes program and all the stuff that you do, and it's the amount of politics that you go through. And I know conservation, that kind of comes with the territory. Most everybody we talk to, the politics are kind of the number one hurdle or something along those lines. But the sheer amount of work that you've been able to do, the projects that you've been able to put together and work on with the help of tribes in the area, local politics, regional politics, state politics, federal politics, has been that was really what I took to be the most impressive, in how you've been able to kind of maneuver all of that. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, well, that's not really just me. That's fisheries in the Great Lakes. If you're gonna effectively manage fisheries in the Great Lakes, you can't do that within a state boundary. The fish obviously could care less what the state boundaries are, and so there's a really impressive cooperative management system in the Great Lakes where the states and the tribes and the federal agencies coordinate together. It's all under the Great Lakes Fishery Commission umbrella, where they basically have a system where each of the lakes has committees that manage fisheries together and make decisions and study the lakes. So the lakes are complex and so you can't. It's not the kind of thing that the Nature Conservancy or even like a state agency or something could really do by themselves. It's right. That sort of collaboration is really critical to really make headway in some of the issues that we're facing in the lakes.
I had one question about the group within the Nature Conservancy that you work with, kind of compared to our first guest. Shout out Trevor Edmondson from the Nature Conservancy down at Kankakee Sands in Indiana. They have a plot of land, that they're managing, and it seems and I know that they collaborate with other conservancies around and everything, but it seems like they're kind of on more of an island that's a little bit easier to tell where the borders are. But what you're doing, because the Conservancy actually owns that land, but what you're doing, you guys don't own that land. You're just, I guess, offering your services.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at a DNR, look at the difference between like what a wildlife division does and what fisheries does. I mean, generally, the Indiana DNR, they don't really own the lakes or the rivers or the Great Lakes. They're basically working in public waters.
Okay.
Whereas Indiana DNRs does have a lot of state parks and forests and state game areas and that kind of stuff that they manage. So it's just the Nature Conservancy is the same way. We have land that we manage, but we also have folks that focus on agriculture, and they're all working with the agricultural community. That work's probably more comparable to my work, is where we're not working on our land so much, but working with the public resources, trying to get as much conservation done as we can.
That's another good route to it. I mean, it'd be hard to help out the Great Lakes if you had to own a chunk of land,
Yeah, actually, I think a lot of people think of Nature Conservancy, when they think of us, they think of, Trevor's work and that kind of stuff. And that is a very important part of what we do. But I don't know. The way I think of like our transformation to being more broad and working on the issues, I like from my perspective, I think it happened in the 90s. And in the 90s is also when we started working on freshwater. We started like not just working on land, but started thinking about water. And you can't, if you want to improve a river, you can't buy the watershed, you know.
Right.
It's not going to work that way. You've got to like work with landowners and work more like, across lands. And I think that kind of shifted us a bit. And I also think when that shift happened, I think we started realizing like, okay, we can do this work on private land, but even our lands need to be connected, and we need to be thinking about corridors and migration patterns and all that kind of stuff. And so even our land management, I'm sure Trevor probably works on a lot of that kind of stuff, you know, as well, in addition to the specific things they're doing, you know, like on Kankakee Sands.
Yeah.
Yep. How do you balance the research, field work, and all that collaboration? Where do you find most of your time is spent, or where would you prefer it be spent?
I mean, I'm trying to deal with conservation problems. So I'm trying to advance conservation work. So all the science that I do is in service to that conservation. So there's certain times we've got to answer questions, or if a lot of the species that I work with, we don't know very much about them. And so some of the management requires that we understand more about the species. And then some of the things we're trying to do, we don't know how to do them. And so we have to, you know, make good guesses and test different ways of doing things. And that's science and, you know, but it's also conservation.
The hard part too with what you're saying is it takes a long time to do studies.
Yeah.
You may not see the results of a study for a few years.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
it's super, and then trying to convince all these different governments and tribes and everything to go along with something when it's going to take 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years to see the results. Like that's tough.
Yeah.
Do you have to do any razzle and dazzle for funding or anything like that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we've got folks that's what they do is help, you know, bring in money for us. But you know, we're also try to get public grants as much as we can, and also like, you know, we work with our philanthropy folks to either just giving them information about our projects so that they can go to donors and talk about our work, or occasionally they'll ask us to come along and meet with donors and talk about our work and answer questions and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like across the board. So you definitely you got to keep the lights on, you know.
A lot of the work you do is the science and then kind of boots on the ground action. I've looked up, you know, obviously you guys rebuilding the reefs in Lake Michigan right outside Traverse City, I believe. That video that's on the Nature Conservancy is sweet.
There's one part of that video that I love, and it's you're being interviewed by somebody and they're dumping rocks in the lake right behind you. And I kept thinking like, man, that'd be so hard not to be watching that, like turn around and watching them dumping rocks in the lake.
And I heard Lindsay Chatterton. I know that Lindsay Chatterton was in that video as well. That was cool. And then I know you guys are doing a lot of work with the fish eggs up the river even more to try to get them up there. And, you know, we'll get more into that. But in terms of that on the ground action, the science, and then kind of doing those, how did you say it, Travi? Hooplas or whatever?
Razzle and dazzle?
The razzle and dazzle to get to the public. How do you translate that super complex ecological data or the science to be a easier pill to swallow in the communities?
There's a story arc to our work. You know, there's always like details and complexities, but there's a story arc to our work, you know, to each of the projects I work on. And that's really what you want to focus on, is just talk about like, you know, the problem, why we're doing this, you know, what we're working towards, you know, Yeah, so you could get caught up in details, and there's of course a bazillion details, but if we really think through what we're doing, there should be ways to narrow it down, for a different audience. We'll see.
Okay.
When we talk about that river, that tributary whitefish work, we'll see how well. Hopefully, I can do that when we talk about that project. So.
You'll do just fine. Like you said, it's like even just reading the articles and learning a little bit about it, it's pretty awesome work. And where you guys started with the incubators and now how you're getting those eggs with the PVC pipe. And I think it's interesting, but I think we were having a conversation earlier just about just people being naysayers with the orcas. And I just have to imagine there's a lot of that when it comes to money, finances, community buy-in, things along those lines. And then to your guys' point, once again, just the length of time. Because I will say, like, when I was looking you up, I was trying to find very recent journals, very recent news articles, things along those lines. And I think the newest one I found was October. And I was starting to get down on myself like, man, am I up to date on what Matt's doing? And then it kind of dawned on me that with the reef rebuilding and with what you're doing with the river or the lake whitefish, once you have this idea, it does take years. So to keep the community, not only to sell them originally, but to keep the community involved, keep them engaged into the process, that I imagine that's got to be a hurdle.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hadn't really thought about, like, if you look at my publications, how do you track what I'm working on right now? And you're 100% right. There's a huge lag, and part of that is because publishing stuff is important, but sometimes it's really hard to get to it, because there's so many other things to do. There's so much, making sure, like, the work is moving forward, making sure, like, we're the whole partnership, making sure we're having meetings and we've got good communication together, making sure we've got funding for next year, all of those things. And so it does make it hard to stay on top of publications, and I'm always really behind on that. So it definitely shows.
I have no doubts.
Do you do one for every project, or are there certain ones where this is a bigger project and I've got these people and we're going to do this together and we're going to write a journal about it?
It depends. Some things it's, it depends. There's a whole bunch of things. So one thing it depends on is who's involved in the project and does somebody have time?
Yeah. Does funding have to do, like, a funding demand have to do with it?
Funding demands can have to do with it. Also, like, how strategic it is to get this out. So if we're trying to, like, if we want to influence the whole community across the Great Lakes to do this, we better get something out there, to have that influence. And some of the things maybe we didn't really, that wasn't a big deal, So maybe it's not as high of a priority for that thing. So it varies on a lot of things.
And like publishing a journal, a lot of times the general public doesn't have access to a lot of journals. So like the story we did today in the News Panther, that was published in a journal, but all these local news agencies picked up on it and reported about the story in the journal. So that's like a big part of it as well, getting interest in a publication.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's something that scientists have learned much more in recent years is if you want to be relevant, you can't just be talking to each other. You've got to be talking. You got to be talking to everybody, the whole community.
And conservation is one of those things that is like a bipartisan for the most part. Like everybody can get on board with, we want cleaner waterways. We want to save forests, everything. So
the Great Lakes people in our region love the Great Lakes.
We're not in that region and we love the Great Lakes.
It's a vacation destination for us, and it's right in our backyard.
It's awesome.
Damn right. So right now, if I'm correct, the Nature Conservancy and the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Ottawa Indians, LTBBOI, are working to revive and restore the spawning lake whitefish. We've referred to this a couple of times. So I'm interested, could you walk us and then our listeners through what your restoration goals are, what kind of drove that in the beginning, and what are you attempting, what does success look like?
Can you start with like, when did you realize this was a problem that needed to be fixed?
Yeah.
And then kind of go into how that turned out and how you started.
Even before I get into that, like this is a big partnership. So I want to make sure I touch on everybody because I don't want to forget.
Please do.
So it's the Nature Conservancy, Little Traverse Bay Band, also the Sioux tribe of Chippewa Indians. There's a Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, the Bay Mills Indian community, the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, and the Michigan DNR. So there's a big coalition of folks that are contributing to this. And what this comes down to is a couple of things. One is that whitefish, so lake whitefish are the most important commercial fishery in the upper Great Lakes. I think they're the most important commercial fishery in all of the Great Lakes, but definitely by far the most important in the upper Great Lakes.
That's one thing I was going to ask, like how big the commercial fishery industry is in the Great Lakes.
Is that where all our restaurant whitefish comes from?
Absolutely. Yep. You go up north and all the restaurants, there's whitefish pretty much in just about any restaurant up north. There's smoke shops all over the place that sell whitefish. A lot of whitefish are shipped to New York City. There's whitefish shipped to Scandinavia. It is a big fishery, and it's in addition to the economics of it, you're just culturally, it's very important. It's extremely important to the tribes.
Yeah.
The tribes, a lot of the tribes that I talked about, and quite a few others, they have fishing rights in the Great Lakes, and they've got commercial fishers that fish in the Great Lakes. They fish for sustenance in the Great Lakes as well. Very important to them culturally. But I would argue whitefish are important to many people in our region culturally. I know a lot of people that that's part of their experience when they go up north is having whitefish either in a restaurant or buying whitefish. And whitefish, the commercial fishery of the lakes, there's a lot of towns in the Great Lakes, Sandusky, Ohio, Alpena, Michigan, places like that historically back in the late 1800s, that was part of what built those towns is fishing. They had lots of people fished out of those harbors, and then they had processing plants where they processed those fish and then shipped them to Cleveland and Detroit and Chicago and other places in our region. So lots of heritage based on these fish as well. So both economically and culturally important.
And when we talk whitefish, there's three major fish as far as I understand it. The Cisco, and then can you name the other two that...
So there's... historically, there were 8 species. There's Cisco and whitefish, which are kind of the shallow forms, and then there. Oh man, can I name them all? The short-nosed Cisco, the kai, the deep-water Cisco, the oh man,
you got it.
Bloater, which are still quite common.
That's an awesome name.
And I'm missing one. A blackfin Cisco.
Nice. He did it, y'all. Good job.
What,
nice.
Like ecologically, what is their importance?
So ecologically, they, so the lakes are pretty young. This is a pretty in the geologic time. The lakes are not that old. We're talking. They're 12,000, 14,000 years old. And the fish that colonized the Great Lakes tended to be more river fish that populated our region. And there weren't a lot of fish that were like that had enough adaptability to really be able to take advantage of the deep water habitats in the Great Lakes. In the deep waters, we've got bloater, we've got lake trout, lake trout is something that was able to diversify and utilize the deep waters. But the Ciscos, they were able to diversify and use those deep water habitats as well. And there was diversification happening, when settlement happened in the region. In fact, there were lots of different forms of Ciscos in the lakes that were probably on their way to becoming new species. But with all the problems we created in the Great Lakes, we lost most of those more subtle forms. I always use it. Are you familiar with the cichlids in Lake Victoria in Africa?
No.
So Lake Victoria is an old volcanic lake in Africa, and that I think all the fish in Lake Victoria are cichlids, which they basically diversified, and they occupy all kinds. There's huge cichlids, small cichlids, all kinds of different sizes in Lake Victoria, and they basically diversified to use all the different habitats in Lake Victoria. Ciscos were kind of doing that. They were kind of diversifying to take advantage of all those different deep water habitats. So if we look at all the different Cisco species, you could kind of see these guys use kind of focus more on these depths, and they spawned at this time of year. These guys use this depth and spawned, So there were differences that they had, and there was more and more differences kind of evolving over time.
So are the native fish in the Great Lakes, were they the fish that migrated north as the glaciers were melting?
Yeah. There was refugia in different parts of the region. And fish colonized from different places that were outside of the glacial areas. There was colonization from the east, there was colonization from the west, even some colonization from the Hudson Bay area too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So back to Travis's question, just because I do want to just let our listeners know of this project that you're working on. When did you notice that?
Sorry, we keep taking you on tangents.
No, that's perfectly fine.
It's my fault, not you guys.
No, this is great conversation. I am honestly just holding tight because I am learning so damn much. I'm going to be Googling all fucking night tonight.
Yeah, I have a bunch of tabs open.
Farting night.
No.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah, searching stuff.
Brad's researching as we're speaking. So when did you notice that you kind of had to step in? 'Cause I just want to add, the way it seems to me is you guys started rebuilding reefs, kind of doing that because you wanted this spawning habitat for the river, the whitefish to come into and be able to spawn, which I've just thought that was incredible, putting these rocks down there and having enough space for the eggs to go down, incubate, be able to grow, and then the fish come back up. So I guess I'm just going to preamble a little bit, or did you guys going upriver to incubate the eggs upriver, did that spawn from the project of rebuilding the reefs, or is that a completely separate thing?
Yeah, probably. I guess I've never really thought about that, but you're right. I was working with partners on reefs, and we were, reefs in the Great Lakes are basically just these rocky habitats. They're the same glacial, the glaciers left all these features on our landscape, moraines and eskers and all these different features on our landscape. Well, of course, those continued out into the water. The water levels weren't the same back then. So they just continued out into the water. But over time in the lakes, wave action, moraines and eskers and those sorts of things, they tend to be really rocky. But on land, you got a lot of dirt in there too. And so they've got trees and everything on them. But in the water, all that till washed away, leaving just rocks. So we've got these rock piles. They're usually linear.
Good rock hounded up there in Michigan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Those are basically our reefs in the Great Lakes. There are some bedrock reefs too, but most of the reefs in the Great Lakes are glacial deposits, and they're basically just big piles of rock. But those piles of rock are really important for not just whitefish, but a lot of different fish species spawn on those. Walleye, perch, lake trout, whitefish, cisco, lots of different things spawn on those, and they're nice for fish because they can put their eggs over the reef, and then their eggs kind of work their way down into the rocks where they're protected from wave action and from predation and other things, and then when they're ready, they'll hatch out.
Right.
And so healthy reefs are really important. We do have a lot of really important conservation issues on our reefs, so we are continuing that work and really trying to make reefs healthy for a whole diversity of fish. But you're right. We did see that whitefish. What was happening with whitefish was particularly not good. For the last 15 years, we've been seeing a decline in whitefish in both Lake Michigan and Lake Huron. And this is really being caused, it's probably more complex than this, but at least part of it is being caused by, we've had this huge proliferation of quagga mussels in the Great Lakes, an invasive species. They are filter feeders, and they're making the water like hyper clean, like super, super clean. And that means clean, not just from whatever dirt or whatever, but like they're all the nutrients in the water column. They're pulling that in and they're sucking those up and turning it into quagga mussel biomass. And
there's no way to get rid of zebra or quagga mussels, right? Like
yeah, there's work going on right now to experimentally, remove them on in local areas, including there's some really good reef work because they create problems on reef just like they do everywhere else. So there's some really good work going on reefs to experimentally try to figure out different ways to remove them. And I think that work's really exciting and has a ton of great potential. There's also work going on to bring in bigger technologies that can potentially wipe them out, lake wide. Awesome. I think we're a ways out from that kind of stuff, but that research is really important as well.
Yeah. Were those invasive from Europe?
Yeah, they invaded. They invaded from Eurasia, the Balkan area, and they came in on ballast waters of ships. And 1988 is kind of when they invaded, and they invaded in that Lake St. Clair area in over by Detroit. That's where they kind of initially found them, and then within. Zebra mussels and quagga mussels, they're both like same genus, so they're really closely related species. They both were found at about the same time, but zebra mussels exploded. And from 1988 to the 2000s, like that's what we had as zebra mussels. But in around 2003, quagga mussels, who had just been kind of laying low before that, that's when they really took off and started to explode. And they're, zebra mussels, they like to live on rocks or other hard surfaces. So they were a problem getting on boats and things like that. But they kind of needed to be on a hard surface. And most of the bottom of the Great Lakes is clay or mud or sand, and not really conducive for zebra mussels to colonize. But quagga mussels don't need that. They can live on softer surfaces. And so we now have, there's literally quadrillions of quagga mussels in the Great Lakes.
Oh my God.
And they filter feed, they're just constantly filtering nutrients out of the water column.
How big is like an adult one? How big do they get?
They get pretty big. I mean, nothing like our native mussels, but they'll get like somewhere between Well, quarters, probably a quarter is a good size one. I was going to say between a quarter and a 50-cent piece, but probably nobody even knows what a 50-cent piece is anymore, and they probably don't actually get that big. So probably a quarter is a good size one.
That's terrifying to think about, quadrillion. And
yeah, I mean, there's only like 5 states that don't have zebra or quagga mussels in their waterways. It's everywhere.
That's right. That's right.
It's
they
funny.
Are invading the West.
I was listening to WBOI, our local Fort Wayne public radio station, and they had a story about, or they were interviewing a person that was dealing with quagga mussels, and I had just gotten my car and turned it on, and I was like, "There's no way." Like, this is Matt, like, talking on the radio right now. He didn't have an accent, though. Anyway, but he is a scientist from Europe that's dealing with the same problems, but he comes over to the Great Lakes region to kind of see what we're doing to help fix that problem, and maybe going back to Europe to be like, they don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, so while that work was going on, that's when we started seeing like, oh man, whitefish are not doing well. Even like coming off our reefs, they're just not doing well. And it was really a function. We think a lot of it is a function of there's just not enough food when they do hatch successfully from our reefs, which is something we're worried about too. Is enough production coming off of our reefs, but when they hatch and they move off into their nursery habitats, they eat zooplankton, like basically really small crustaceans that you can kind of see them in the water column, but really you need a microscope to really see the details of them. But for pretty much just about probably every single small fish that is in our region eats zooplankton for at least a short period of time. As they're growing to be a juvenile. So really important for just about any fish you can name at some point in their life. And different fish focus on different zooplankton. So, some fish aren't doing bad like whitefish are. And so part of that could be because, maybe they're keying in on different things, but certainly we're not seeing young whitefish recruited into the fishery. The fishery, the adult fish are just getting older, and we're not seeing very many young fish coming into that. And so, a group of us really, we saw this happening, and then, there's something else kind of really interesting that's happened. Historically, whitefish spawn on reefs in the Great Lakes, but if you go back to the 1800s and before that, whitefish used to spawn in our rivers too. But we lost river runs of whitefish back during that Paul Bunyan era. All the sediment. When they logged, they put the logs into the river. And just imagine taking a forest and every single log is going to the riverbank, going down to the river. There was
gouging it out.
A ton of sediment going into the river, all that erosion.
And not to mention the runoff.
Yep, and the runoff. And then those logs were going down to a mill, and the mills had a dam on the river where they would catch the logs, and so that dam would prevent passage.
Okay.
And then the mills would dump their sawdust right into the river. I don't know when you guys did your Manistee hike a couple months ago. Just below Tippy Dam, there's a sawdust pile there, and that sawdust pile is from back in that era.
Oh wow!
So like an old petrified sawdust pile.
Yeah, there's still these sawdust piles all over the place around the Great Lakes.
Crazy to see. I want to see those.
So, and that sawdust was worse than sediment because it does the same thing. It fills in those spaces in the rocks where the eggs need to go. But sawdust is organic matter, so it also bacteria grows on it, and it takes away oxygen. So anyway, all those things kind of combined, and we lost whitefish river runs throughout the Great Lakes. But they started using a handful of rivers in Green Bay again. Wisconsin DNR discovered this back in 1994. They were using the Menominee River, which is on the border of Michigan and Wisconsin. And then in I think it was 2006, they discovered there were also runs in the Peshtigo River, the Oconto River, and the Fox River, all
Nice.
Green Bay rivers. So they basically had come back on their own. And the nice thing about rivers is, we've got this problem in the lakes of, not as many nutrients. But if you think about the bottom of our rivers at the, where the rivers flow into the lakes, it isn't, if you look at a map, you'll see like a river and then a lake. There's like this is where the river ends and the lake starts. But it's not really like that. It's really the river backs up, or the lake backs up into the river for sometimes many miles.
Kayak in the Ausable, I learned that the hard way.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Because I
sir.
was more
Kayakers
paddling
know
than
this
floating.
very well.
Yeah.
And so a little fish isn't going to get dumped right into the lake. It's going to hit those slack water habitats, and there's going to be that's the mouth of a river, so there's going to be a ton of nutrients there. There ought to be a lot of zooplankton there too, a lot of food resources. So our thinking is, if we had rivers, if we had whitefish using our rivers again, it'll help them find the food resources that they need to get through that life bottleneck that we're seeing. So that's what we're trying to do, is trying to, how do you get them using rivers again? That's what we're experimenting with, is testing different ways to get them use rivers. But the key is to get them to imprint on the river. So we're trying different ways. We want to make sure that we get as much survival, and so there's much potential for return as possible. So we're stocking eggs, we're stocking young fish, we're trying different things to basically get whitefish back into our rivers again.
You're building some habitat as well, then too.
We're not really doing habitat right now. There's a lot of habitat that's available. Based on the Wisconsin experience. They're using basically walleye habitat over in Wisconsin. Anything that's walleye or sturgeon habitat. And we have a lot of walleye and sturgeon habitat that's connected to the lakes. And so we could do habitat work, but we really, the biggest problem is they stopped using rivers. And, they, just like salmon, they imprint on their natal habitat. We see that in the lakes. The whitefish that use a reef, the same fish come back to the same reef every year.
That's pretty cool.
They're keying in onto that habitat. And so we lost whitefish that key in on rivers for spawning. And so we've got to help them start using. So
they have to
rivers
kind
again.
of choose to kind of venture out of where they are now.
Yeah.
Is it a generational thing? Is it like a nurture?
It's innate. It's basically there's some sort of chemical signature. This is the way salmon do it out in the Northwest. They go back to that natal habitat, and there's some sort of chemical signature that tells them which river and what part of that river to go back to, and that's where they go back to. And so all of our whitefish, their innate sense is telling them to go back to where came from, and that's a reef, And so we still need that. We need reef spawners, but we need some of our whitefish to start keying in on rivers and going back to rivers again.
Well, not to mention like the subsistence side of it too. I'm sure like a lot of the tribal communities and stuff, the river runs of whitefish were a pretty important aspect of that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Historically, that would have been a big harvest. Yeah.
When I noticed that when looking at the map of all the reefs in the Great Lakes, there's a ton around Isle Royal. Is that because it's a national park, so it's been protected longer and not messed with as much?
That's more geology. It's like the same feature.
All the islands.
So oftentimes there's a lot of reef around islands, especially if it's an archipelago, because the basically the reefs are sunken islands, you know.
Yeah.
So you've got the archipelago is all these like kind of mounds sticking up, you know.
Yeah.
And you basically have if the lake levels were different, a lot of our reefs would be islands, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah. We had a really strongly worded debate, one of our trivia episodes about where an underwater mountain, where the base of that mountain starts. Do you guys remember that?
I knew the answer, Brad. I knew the answer.
Like if it's a 500-foot mountain underwater, where does the 0 point start?
Well, we don't have an answer though.
Yeah, we
have a scientist on the show now. Where does how do you measure elevation?
Because you don't have
from
ground level.
A mountain in the ocean. They say one of the Hawaiian Islands is like taller than
it's the tallest mountain in the world.
Yeah, Mount Everest. And I'm like, well, where are you starting?
Where's 0?
There's no sea level.
Bottom.
Yeah,
the bottom. The answer's the bottom.
It's definitely outside of my expertise, but it is an interesting question. I guess it depends. To me, it would kind of depend.
Yeah, that would be the proper answer.
Yeah,
well, that's not an answer. It depends.
Well, that's what Patrick should have said, other than the bottom.
The bottom.
The bottom of what?
It starts at the bottom. That's it. That's got to be the answer.
I give a lot of wishy-washy answers.
From the core.
Hey, that's just fine.
Yeah,
you stick in your lane, and I'll keep arguing with these two.
We call wishy-washy answers drive-by science, and they are 100% approved.
Approved. So I read quite a bit about how you guys were going about getting the fish up into the rivers. First, you started with incubators, and then now it doesn't seem like you're using incubators so much that you're putting them right into the sediment with long PVC pipes. Somebody dumps the fish eggs down, and then you or somebody else takes the river water and kind of flushes them down into a hole or into the sediment. Are you seeing... Like, how should I feel about this? Am I feeling impressed or not impressed? That's a terrible word, but am I excited?
Optimistic.
Are you guys seeing any progress, any growth in fish? Are you seeing more and more coming to the area? This imprinting thing, is that coming on?
Yeah, so we've only been doing this for a few years, and it takes the adults about 6 years before they'll start coming back. So
that's how long it takes to start spawning.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So how we're basing on what the life history is for the rivers would be they would move up to the rivers, spawn in November ish. They spawn so the reefs of our rivers are our riffle and rapids habitats, right? Those rocky habitats. There's basically the same kind of thing as our reefs. So they would spawn in riffles and rocky habitats in our rivers, and then the eggs work their way down into those rocks, just like they do into the reefs, and they overwinter in that habitat. And then sometime in March or March-ish, they, depending on the temperature, how cold it was in the winter, what the temperatures on the lake or in the river are, they're going to emerge. And they're going to basically drift down and let the river take them down to their nursery habitat. And so that we talked about those slack waters at the mouth of the river. That's where the river is going to take them down to. And then that'll be, that they'll spend probably couple months in that habitat. And in most of our rivers, that'll start to get too warm. But by that time, they're bigger. They'll be bigger, decent sized juveniles. And then they can move off and go out into the lake and move off into their deep water habitat, just like the reef fish do. And then we won't see them again until they're adults. Then they're basically in the lakes, just like a salmon is out into the ocean. You don't see them until they come back. So the time for us to tell whether these strategies are working is we've been doing a couple of different things. We've been setting up basically drift nets, so nets that are facing upstream and are basically catching stuff as they're coming downstream. We set those up below where we stock, and it gives us a sense of what proportion of the whitefish that we've stocked in the river are actually moving downstream into those nursery habitats. This last year, we got chased off the water right at the time that we were expected to be our peak. We had a lot of snow in the watershed, and it was like a 70-degree day on a Friday. So we got chased off for 3 nights, and we think we missed them. So we kept fishing, but we didn't get any. But then after we shut down the drift netting, we decided, well, let's go down and sample at the mouth of the river in those nursery habitats, that slackwater habitats, and we got whitefish down there, which was really cool too. So 2 years in a row we've seen return. The year before last, we saw fish coming down, hatching from that was from incubators. The reason why we switched is the whole idea by the incubators is they're protected from the elements and from predation and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was pretty clear to us that not enough of them, they were surviving, but a lot of them were having a hard time getting out of there. So we were like, okay, let's just try putting them right into the substrate, right into that rocky habitat, and see what happens. And both of them worked. One of my colleagues from Little Traverse Bay Band did some experiments this summer with the incubators to try and see if we can get them to work better, and we think we've got some answers there to try. So we do plan on trying the incubators more, but we know we've got some tools. We've got some methods that work, and we've still got some things that we want to try. We're also Sioux Tribe's been leading some work where we take fish. We're taking adult fish from Lake Huron that are ready to spawn and just moving them up into the Carp River, which is that's a tributary of northern Lake Huron, just north of St. Ignace. And we're looking at. We did this for the first time last year. We're going to do it again this year. We're basically looking at how long they stay in the river. Will they stay in the river long enough that they'll basically just be stuck there and just use the river to spawn? And we feel really good about them doing that because as a proof of concept in the fall of 2023, Sioux Tribe held some near ready to spawn whitefish in one of their raceways at their hatchery, and they spawned in that raceway. And so if they're gonna spawn there, they ought to spawn in nice, good-looking rocky habitat in a river. The key is they just gotta stay up there long enough. And what we saw last year looked really good. So again, another tool that we're trying to develop to show that it works for trying to reestablish river runs. And at the same time we're doing this, we're working with the fish and working. It's not just science. I mean, we are trying to get some runs going if we can. So,
is there a way when they're juveniles and really small? Is there a way to, like, if you're drift net catching them, to tag them, or are they just too small? Because there's like a rule of thumb, like a percentage of their body weight that a tag has to be, and I imagine that's super lightweight for a tiny little juvenile.
Yeah, we can't really tag them. There is something that like a lot of hatcheries will mark their fish with oxytetracycline. I to be honest, I can't even tell you what the chemical is actually for, but in fish, it'll put like a little like fluorescent looking band on their otolith. So fish have these ear bones that you can actually use those. You can take their ear bones out. You have to kill them to do that and age them. But you can also pull those otoliths out, and you'll see the yellow ring from when they were marked with that in a hatchery. And all you do to mark them is you basically they have to sit in a vat of water that has oxytetracycline in it, and it'll put a mark on there. But that's only if you have the young fish. Okay. You can't do it on eggs. Okay. And that's mostly what we're working with is eggs. Yeah. So we really can't do that. So we don't have a way to mark them. So
this is kind of random, but one of the kind of things I picked up on is you guys were doing a news interview, and the lady was inquiring into how many fish eggs that this gentleman had in a bag. And I just thought it was so funny because the guy said something like 29,459 or something like that, like very, very specific number. Was that just a funny thing he said, or is it that specific?
That I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. That I know is my friend and awesome colleague, Chris Dye. He runs the Little Traverse Bay Band hatchery. Chris is definitely a numbers guy. He's always.
I can respect that.
I can absolutely respect it. So yeah. I don't
come on,
know.
Just ballpark me, man.
I don't know what clip you're talking about, but that was Chris. So he's great at that.
As I was reading it, I giggled to myself, man, he is specific on that one.
And how do you count them?
So it is an estimate, but what they do is you basically you count out a certain number of eggs and take the volume of those eggs, and then you basically say, okay, the volume of a subsample of these eggs is this much, and so then you do the volume of all the eggs. And you can basically calculate the number, but it's an estimate. Okay. It is an estimate. It's not
That's
the exact
good beans in a jar strategy.
It's the exact estimate that he's giving you. So.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, I just thought it was funny. That was good. So we've got you on here for about an hour and a half now. So I don't want to keep up any more of your time, but I do have a couple more questions, and I want to look into the future. I want our listeners to understand, kind of how you feel, what does the future look like? Like, are you feeling good about the future?
Yeah, I feel good about the future. I mean, there's always things to be worried about, but the Great Lakes are big, and there's a lot of good things about the lakes. There are a lot of things that we're concerned about. There's no question about that. But there's a lot of good people working on those things, trying to address them, trying to make things better. It doesn't, there's always going to be bumps. But I think we're going to find ways. We're going to find ways to deal with this stuff. And I don't know. I guess maybe I love what I do, and I feel good about what I do, and there's a lot of great people doing it. And honestly, you get out there, how can you not love getting out there and just enjoying the resources that we have blessed to have around us?
I absolutely agree and understand. What I find to be fascinating is through our kind of evolution of this podcast and talking to more conservationists and people like yourself, it's one, like I like a lot of things. I love some things, but in terms of going out and putting together the science and the journals and talking with the community members, the tribes, just the sheer enormity of what you and your groups take on, that's another level. It is truly remarkable what you guys are doing up there, and just the idea that you've noticed the decline in the whitefish, and it's not so much of something, there's a decline, but you guys see this decline and then you just start putting thought to action. Like this, how about let's try this incubators, let's try this, let's try that. And it's just with people like you at the helm and the Nature Conservancy in its entirety, I tend to take away from these interviews a very positive mindset that the future can be bright.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And I like your calm demeanor about it. Like, we don't have the answers right now, but I know that we'll figure it out, and everything we'll make things better. But in terms of the Great Lakes as a whole, early American, all the way up until now, American industrialization has really kicked the Great Lakes in the nuts, and
for sure.
Brad mentioned
that's an article headline right there.
Isle Royale, and how that used to be a copper mine back in the day, and they just ravaged that island. But it has returned with wildlife, and it's a beautiful place. And I know Lake Erie, they used to say you could catch it on fire.
Yep.
Would you say that we've definitely, like, things have improved greatly from those days when we were just rampantly just exploiting every resource there was available?
I think there's no question that a lot of things are way better. I mean, just look at the whitefish. I mean, the fact that our rivers, they could spawn again in our rivers, is a huge step. We continually throw out new challenges. We make mistakes all the time, and we're constantly identifying things that we're doing that are just making, while things are getting better, we're making mistakes at the same time. Yeah. So, but a lot of things have gotten better, and that should give us faith that as long as we're diligent, we can make the things that we're doing now, we can stop those and make them better as well.
How much of your thought in these projects goes into not disturbing the existing ecosystem as we're trying to reintroduce, this, once native animal?
100%. I mean, that is really important. We've thought about that. We've talked about that a lot. One of the first, we first had the idea to start doing this in 2018. But, one thing that occurred to us is, nobody has gone out in November and done whitefish surveys in these rivers. So, what if we start putting fish around, and what if there are remnant runs of whitefish in other places that we don't know about? So that was what we started out in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. We were out doing electrofishing surveys in rivers all around Lake Michigan and northern Lake Huron, looking for whitefish. We kind of going into that, we thought we'd find them in Michigan tributaries in Green Bay because we didn't think that they cared about the Michigan-Wisconsin border. But we did not think we'd find them outside of Green Bay, and that's exactly what we found. We found them in Michigan tributaries in Green Bay and not outside of Green Bay, which kind of told us what we thought we were going to find, but it was important to look for them because we didn't want to be stocking fish on top of a remnant population. But at the same time, there's other species of fish too, and so we've thought a lot about that. There's not a lot of conflicts with whitefish in these rivers because they're coming up in November, they're spawning, and then the adults are going to leave. They're going to head back downstream pretty quickly within just a few weeks. And then the eggs are going to be in those habitats in the winter, and then they're going to hatch out and go right downstream. So there's not a lot of time for conflicts. And really the eggs in that habitat, they're not going to harm anything. There's going to be some things that are going to eat them. There's no question about that, but they're not really going to cause problems. And we're restoring a process that used to be there anyway. And so, yeah, we've thought a lot about that, and we always think about that, but there's really we're restoring a lot more than any sort of risk of causing any problems. But you're right. All the time, that's all kinds of work that we do. We got to make sure that when we're trying to make things better, we're actually not accidentally making something worse. So that's always really important.
That's got to be like the hardest part too. I mean, there's so many unknowns.
It's a lot of hard parts.
Yeah. That's always one of my first questions. Which is like, well, we found this miracle thing that we're going to do to restore this thing. And I'm like, well, what's the secondary? What's the secondary?
Yeah, for sure.
That's where just the sheer amount of research you got. I mean, you said you started in 2018, so that's 5-6 years of just data collecting that you did prior to ever putting an egg into the river. I mean, that's quite a bit of research.
Yeah.
So, back to the listeners. I want the listeners to know that if there's any way that they want to take part, if they want to kind of learn a little bit on their own or anything that they could do, what is a good way for our listeners to take part in what you're doing and help out?
Honestly, don't stop eating Great Lakes fish. You know, if you like to eat whitefish, do not stop eating them. I mean, it's you know, the commercial fishers out there, they're victims in this thing. You know, they didn't cause that life history bottleneck that we're seeing. They're the victims of it. So
it's not overfishing that causes
it's definitely this fishery is really well managed. There's a committee that reviews catches frequently, makes adjustments all the time. So it is definitely not overfishing. Those folks are definitely the victims here. You know, just support, make sure our agencies have funding, make sure, you know, they're empowered to do what needs to be done. Honestly, I mean, getting out there, getting outdoors, doing the things you guys are promoting, that it makes a huge difference. You know, if people don't actually get out there and enjoy the lakes, enjoy our rivers and our forests, you know, there's no money around it, you know.
Buy a fishing license.
Yeah, and the people in those communities, they depend on, you know, if you go hiking somewhere, if you can, try to get your groceries at the local place nearby, and try and make sure they know that you're hiking, you know, that you're using the resource nearby, and you appreciate this awesome place near music, you know, or whatever little town you're hiking near. Yeah. Just make sure they know that it's cool. It's cool that they've got this by them, and you're buying stuff. So there's an economic benefit to them. That's huge. That is really big, because, you know, we need local communities that have these resources, and the same thing for the lakes and all of our coastal towns. We want them to make sure they recognize how valuable these resources are, and that's true for our fisheries too. That's why it doesn't really help to not, you know, utilize our fisheries. It doesn't really help in conservation, because people appreciating stuff helps make sure politicians and other people know that people care about it.
Yep,
and that's some of the best advice I think I've heard. That kind of sums up the reason we do this podcast. Like, get out there and appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for shouting us out. Away.
Yeah.
And I guess I you know, I have learned a lot. Some of the information you get back are from the fishermen, not just the fisheries, but the fishermen that are out there just taking their sons out, you know, going out, doing what they've always done. And they're giving some feedback as well. So I thought that was quite, I guess when you think of conservation in terms of land management or anything along those lines, hunters, that angle, it's kind of like hit or miss, I suppose. But it is nice that the fishermen that are going out there on their little boats or whatever are seeing the growth come back, seeing what they would do, you know, what they've done for generations.
Absolutely.
That's gotta be just a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The hunters and, you know, anglers, they have, you know, more attachment to that land and more knowledge of it than, you know, most people.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. For sure.
So Matt, just one last question for you, kind of not even a question, just kind of opening up the floor to you. You spent your life seemingly, you know, in conservation work, not just at the Great Lakes, but elsewhere. What's a message? Just give the listeners one final message from Matt of just anything you want to impart. This is your time.
Wow.
Yeah, take your time, brother.
It's a tough one.
I wouldn't know what to say. I'd be like, quit whining.
Well, I want to write this in. I know that I sent you guys a list of questions a few weeks ago, but there's a part of me that also does want you to take a moment and think about it and give something from your heart as opposed to a prepared statement. Yeah. So that's kind of why I don't like to write it down on the list ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because I like that in the heat of the moment, what is the answer or what's that little bit you'd like to impart? And there is no wrong answer, right?
Kind of said it. Get out there.
That's
true. Go visit the local outfitters, the local stores, restaurants. So it's like something for us. we try to get all these backpacking trips out west, and permits are always so hard to get. And it's always like, well, Falls, we have Michigan, we have Wisconsin. We're just going to go up there and do a backpacking, kayaking trip, whatever. And it's like easy to take for granted that we have that option. And that's like everybody in the Midwest. There's a huge population of people that are so close to these great areas around the Great Lakes. And it's like, don't take that for granted because it could be gone someday.
Yeah,
that's what I always think.
We've discovered so much just from starting this podcast. We had no idea really about any of the conservation work at any of our guests, like where they work and all that. I didn't realize how big the Nature Conservancy was.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. We've talked to the people from the Indiana Audubon, and they're totally into and totally dedicated to it. It's really motivating, and all these places that we're conserving are beautiful, and holy crap, like thank you for dedicating your life to that.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you guys for doing this podcast. It's really cool. I wouldn't have, the first time after Trevor did that episode, that's when I heard about it. And, this is a cool episode. And then over the last few weeks, I've listened to several other ones and learn about the Friends episodes and all that kind of stuff. It's a super entertaining. I mean, you guys are so fun. You guys are so pleasant and just make it really fun. And it's a really pleasant listen. And, and honestly, like it makes me, like I said, like we've been talking about maybe backpacking again, and just hearing you guys talk about gear and stuff. And it makes me remember back when I first did backpack. I had crappy gear. Just like I remember I was in Idaho. I remember freezing my butt off, like sub-zero temperatures and stuff. Or 0 degrees Celsius in the temperatures in the 20s. Sub-freezing. I just. Like the gear talk is really cool. So, and you guys are talking about things that I don't even know what you're talking about because it's newer stuff. You guys are talking about like blow up pillows and stuff. That's new to me.
New to me.
I used to not even bring a pillow when I backpacked. I would just wad up a sweatshirt, and that was my
That's
pillow.
What I'm streaming.
That's definitely how I started.
Clothes sack.
That's what I'm streaming. That's what I use.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm glad that we got those gears a turning on backpacking.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. It's a cool podcast.
Yeah, and when we first started, it was kind of, I think we said, we don't know where this is going to end up, but we're going to start with backpacking. And now it's just basically, how can we get people to go outdoors? Whatever it takes to get you outdoors.
Yeah, and
we're going to talk about it.
If we get people outdoors, they'll understand why, we talk to folks like you that are trying to conserve this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, we can get other people to learn about it and then, spread the word. That's how it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think, I think the connection between hunters and anglers and other users and the conservation community, there's just not enough of a connection. So I think it's awesome. I think it's really, really, really important what you guys are doing.
Thank you very much.
Well, we think what you do is absolutely important.
For sure.
But guys, I think we've reached our time, and before our egos get too much bigger, what do you say we wrap up? Let Matt have his night back. Matt, this was an unbelievable time. I'm going to remember this one for the rest of my life. And I know we talked off air about maybe getting together sometime, doing an interview or just hanging out. We would love to come.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Cool. I had a great time. Great, really cool to spend time with you guys. So
thank you very much, Matt, for coming on. This was a wonderful time.
Yep.
You guys ready to get out of here?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Matt. And I think the last thing I want to say to you, in the words of Douglas Adams, so long and thank you for the fish. And keep on sauntering, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
Was that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Douglas Adams.